Special thanks to our promotional partners at the American Philatelic Society.
The APS is the largest stamp collecting organization in the world, supporting collectors of any level worldwide.
For more information about membership and APS services, visit stamps.org.
I'm Charles Epting from H.R. Harmer in New York City.
And I'm Michael Hortese of NobleSpirit in Pittsfield, New Hampshire.
And this is Conversations with Philatelists. Now, Michael, we're dressed up.
Yes.
Because this is a huge week for philately, at least if you're watching this when the video premieres.
Exactly.
There is one of the most monumental days in philatelic history.
Yeah.
The day after this video premieres.
Yes.
And we are all dressed up because we are going to have a small part in this unbelievably exciting event.
Yeah.
We're here at the office, at the H.R. Harmer office in New York City right now, but we're about to leave. Why don't you tell people where we're going?
So we are heading up to 72nd Street at Sotheby's. They are selling the 1 cent Magenta, the only plate block of 4 inverted jennies, and 4 of the coin people of the world, the 1933 double eagle.
Which is unique in private hands, has a great history that involves the Supreme Court and all sorts of stuff, but that's far outside the scope of this podcast. What we are really excited about, and I'm sure what most of the people listening to or watching this are excited about, are these two philatelic items. You have the 1 cent Magenta from British Guiana, which is the most famous, the rarest, the most expensive, whatever superlative you want to use.
Yeah.
That is this stamp. And then you have the plate block of the inverted jenny, which, I mean, the inverted jenny is the most famous American stamp.
Yes.
I don't think arguably. It
is. Yeah.
And here you've got the unique plate block of 4. Certainly one of the most iconic items of American philately, plus the most iconic item of worldwide philately.
Yeah.
These 3 things, the coin and the block and the stamp, to have them under one roof, let alone in one sale, is unheard of. And the fact that we are able to head up to Sotheby's, and again, I don't know exactly what to expect.
Right,
We've been working on this for a while. We've been really excited to share this with people.
Yeah.
And we hope everybody likes it, but we don't really know what we're getting into.
Yeah. So Robert Scott invited us up. He said, just come and we'll see what happens.
We set up this appointment a while ago, and then we got back into it. It's been, again, a long time in the making.
Yeah.
It was one of those things where I didn't really want to ask questions. I just said yes, we'll be there.
Exactly.
And figure out what we're doing once we get there.
Right.
But again, this is something we've been working on for a long time. We're really excited to take everyone with us, and it's just about time. I say we head up to 72nd Street.
I'm looking forward to it. It's exciting because we don't know what we have in store. Anything could happen.
It absolutely could.
All right.
Let's go find out.
Let's go.
First time I saw this stamp, it was on DuPont's album page. You know, we go back to that institutionalization. If it goes that way, you may be the last people that will see it in the flesh, which you've got to kind of do.
Grab from the bottom.
Right, okay. Yeah, it's tucked into that frame. And we will give it a little polish up afterwards.
Yeah, I'm trying not to.
Right, you've seen it, now we can take it for a walk. Do we have that? Oh, we do. Good. I'm sorry, the lighting's not exactly.
No, this is.
No, it's.
Thank you so much. This is.
I don't even know what to say.
Yeah.
The color's different than.
You cannot photograph it.
No.
Yes.
And even seeing it, I mean, it was amazing at the Smithsonian.
But it's almost got, do you know the secret the patina on it? It's like somebody baked crust on it.
Again, at the Smithsonian, you couldn't tell.
No, that's why I think the first time I spoke to you, I said, you can't explain it.
Seeing the words 1 cent is.
Yeah.
I saw photographs of what was his name, Peter, the German guy, that Peter Windsor, was it? I can't remember. That had the second copy.
Oh yeah.
Which is it's so wrong, it's not true. Although the funny thing is doing the research, because there was a fight back in the mid-19th century, well, the late 19th century, between Judge Philbrick, who was the person who said it doesn't exist, it's not to force it, it doesn't exist, it doesn't exist. The fake one was the one that he was looking at. Yeah. Because Philbrick could never have seen it before it went to France for 40 years.
Right.
Which is, and the parallels between the stamps are amazing, because the Jenny, for instance, was famous after the ink was almost still wet. Yeah. It was famous within 10 days of it going from design to being printed.
Exactly.
This took from 1856, first of all, for the first, 17 years, nobody even knew it existed.
Right.
For the next 40 years, it was just a rumor.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it showed up, which was quite the most amazing thing.
And now it's almost a symbol of the hobby itself.
And it's amazing that of all the unique stamps, this is the one that took off.
But I think that was the reason. It was because it's got the backstory, it's so shrouded in mystery, because it was a case of, does it exist, doesn't it exist? Maybe it exists.
Yeah.
Sporadic appearances in catalogues. When it first appeared in Catalogue, it was priced at £1,000 used, £2,000 mint. I'll have two.
Yeah.
This is the one that maybe that, if you believe the stories, the one that he carried around. We had a good little play around.
Which is funny that he was so adverse to publicity, and yet that story circulated.
I'd love to finish the real story of.
Have you read Wolfgang Mawson's book on it?
Yes. Well, I cringed for it quite liberally, because it's a fascinating story of, and there's no two ways about it, again, living in Paris, which was the only place where he could live, and was probably the reason why he stopped traveling, because there were nasty little rules in place. But the fact that he dressed like a pauper, which of course is the parallel to Colonel Green's Hetty Green and all the rest of it.
And there's that one photo of Ferrari that gets circulated so much. That's such a haunting.
And he's got, yes, exactly, that sort of the sunken eyes.
Exactly. that picture, I think, a lot of his legacy is owed to that image of him.
But, well, in the other book, of course, there were different images. There were different images of him, and so you get an idea. But the stories about the cab drivers, never even getting near it. But it particularly trips before it was like, oh, hold it, he's bags of money. And I don't think we can fathom his wealth. I really don't.
The other thing I love about this, I'm at the New York World's Fair right now, the 39th World's Fair. I love all World's Fairs. That one in particular, my grandmother was there as a young girl. I have a poster of the British Pavilion. Yeah. It's a big poster of the penny black for the Stamp Act. It was the centennial of the postage stamp.
Yes,
and the fact that this was there at that fair where this poster was. And you think of the picture of Andy Levitt with it, and you think of Weinberg with it.
Did you know that? Was he just about around as you were?
I just missed him. He owned H.R. Harmer. He was part of that whole the Greg Manning and other things.
Cabal, as we used to call them.
I missed Andy, but I've heard more stories about him than just about anyone else.
He would have been a fabulous teacher, because he straightened a lot of people out. Yeah. He believed in a lot of hard work and knowing a subject. I had all the time in the world for him, and he was my immediate predecessor at Sotheby. So many good stories with Andy. All the characters. Because I was rather lucky, because I started in the 80s. Well, not obviously, I'm old, but I'm not that old. But I started with Robson Lowe, and I spent a lot of time with Robson.
I've heard a lot of stories about him.
And, yes, and talk about what's the best description of Robson Lowe. If you didn't know the history of it, he could pretty much think of something on the spur of the moment, which then became philatelic.
So December of 2015, I was invited to attend Monaco Phil. I had only been collecting for a year or two at that point. I was a fish out of water. I had no idea what I was doing, surrounded by the world's greatest collectors. And I was standing in the lobby of the Hotel Hermitage one night, just standing there looking lost. And a gentleman walked over to me, and he said, "Are you here for the stamp show?" I thought, "That seems nice." I said, "I am here for the stamp show. How about yourself?" And he informed me he was. And he said, "What do you collect?" And I, trying to act like a big shot, trying to impress someone. I said, I collect the 1933 National Recovery Administration stamp that was issued by Franklin Roosevelt. It's a little 3-cent purple stamp. And I go on to describe this stamp, which any philatelist will tell you is not very valuable and not the most significant from a postal history standpoint. But here I am going on and on about how much I love my cheap little stamp. And a gentleman says to me, I own something from 1933. And I said, all right. Like, I had no idea who he was. I had no idea what he was talking about. He said, but it's not a stamp.
Nice shoes, by the way.
No, he said, it's not a stamp, it's a coin. And I was like, there's a lot of coins from 1933. That's not... Like, I still wasn't catching on.
Yeah.
And he said, it's the Walking Liberty Double Eagle. And I said, but there's only one of those.
Yeah, but you knew enough to know.
Yeah. That's like the only thing I know about coins is this coin. And he says, there is only one, and it's mine. And I don't know, I didn't really believe him. And he says, what do you think of my stamp? And I said, well, which one is yours? And he says, well, it's the 1-cent Magenta. And then it all clicked. All the puzzle pieces came together. And I said, you're Stuart, aren't you? And he sort of laughed, and he said, I am. And I apologized for, blathering on about my cheap little stamp when he owns the greatest stamp of all time. And he was so kind. And he said that was why he enjoyed going to Monaco, was to meet people who...
Oh, absolutely.
And again, the fact that he approached me. So I went and told all of my friends that Stuart Weitzman owns the Double Eagle, because I thought this was public knowledge. And I even Googled it after, and I couldn't find anything. But I thought, So what was really funny, one of my good friends is the editor.
You were actually way ahead of the game.
So one of my friends is the editor of Land Stamp News. And Coin World.
Who is editing?
Jay Bagalki.
Okay, I know the name.
He and Coin World is their sister publication.
Oh yeah.
So,
Press.
Exactly. So on the day this was announced, all the Coin World people come in saying, we didn't know that Stuart owned the coin. This is incredible. And Jay said, I've known this for years. And could have scooped Coin World. And he called me, he goes, were you the one who told me that? And I said, yes. He goes, well, who told you? I said, Stuart.
Which is kind of the greatest get out of all time. It's one thing that he actually does. At the time, and for a couple of years afterwards, he was known within Sotheby's with just a 2-word moniker, Mr. Big. Yeah, he was Mr. Big. And they did a few people did know, but it was kind of sworn to secrecy. And David knew sooner. David had guessed because he met him straight after the sale and then eventually put 2 and 2 together. But the thing that gave it away for most of the coin people was when it was on display, Historical Society.
Was the coin.
Historical Society and the
Jenny.
It was right next to, as some dealer said, well, it was right next to a big thing with a shoe on it, with this, that, and the other. And somebody said, okay, I've made the leap. Has everybody else yet? But, he was a very quiet person. Oh, that's lovely. Not at all. And now we get really primitive. That's right. Well, the best thing about it is that's why because it will separate inadvertently. This sort of special mounting. First time I saw this stamp, it came out of DuPont's. It was on DuPont's album page.
And how did he have it mounted? Was it just in a mount?
It wasn't in a mount. It was hinged to the sheet. I pulled it off the page, and then I pulled the hinge off the stamp. Oh no, it gets better, because we hadn't got really, you remember, don't you? We got really, I guess fussy over it.
We must be
but we didn't have it.
Only people with the honor of selling this stamp twice, right?
No, Siegel's did it, but it was really Andy Levitt the first time,
and
Bob Siegel the second. This was created, and it goes into a little Moroccan leather box that comes with it at enormous expense. They couldn't cut the hole the right size so the stamp doesn't move within the mount. So I had to mount it in this little sheet
to prevent it from
going. Okay, well, we can't do. Right, you get to look at it. And you can see the little sort of lightened spot there with a little bit of a hinge still on it.
Yeah.
And
even compared to.
Yes,
it's a different stamp.
Well, this is why you had. It was the first thing I said. You've got to be able to look at it. This is where somebody sneezes. No, don't worry. You're good. You're good. But as I said, we go back to that institutionalization. If it goes that way, you may be the last people that will see it in the flesh, which you've got to kind of do.
That's incredible.
Even the variation.
And as you say,
oh, geez. It looks like a different stamp.
It does.
it's a whole different animal. And of course, eventually, I suppose, once we're long gone, it'll become like the Stanley Cup. They'll run it and run.
You're going to start making more
there'll be
stamp.
another secondary.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. Look at this. So the colour's bleached out through here.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tide mark where the inks spread. Was this because it was connected by a wafer? Which, because it's not exactly all the same way around, you think that maybe that's the case. And then where they actually licked the wafer, because the surface, because obviously it's a contact transfer that's given the colour on the back between the surface coated on the previous sheet. Or is it because when it was stuck down over the 17 years it was in tropical heat, did the edges lift as it was over the years? Continuously dried, humidified, and it was sort of flat. And you can see how the ink sort of drifted to the bottom, but there's a trace of ink right at the bottom here. So you can imagine the stamp this was the top, this was the bottom. There's still an awful lot one can do with it.
It's incredible, as much as we know, how much we don't know about, even reading about it, that they don't know when the corners were cut off.
I don't think there's a take on it. If you look at because they don't take, there's so many that are photographed, almost, to my knowledge, all of the cut corners are ED white. So you had 5 different people, 5 different types they do, but it seemed that white was the one that cut corners. I'll give you a reason for it. Because the mail was obviously put in sacks and it was gone. Say they did stick them down with wafers. If they were square corners, he may have noticed that the stamps occasionally got pulled and got pulled off. You take the corners off, the stamp doesn't catch.
Same shape as the wafer.
Right, exactly. Same shape of the wafer, but also if 2 pieces of paper come together, if there's a 90-degree corner, it's so easy to get under it, which could lift it. And he probably figured you cut it round the corners, then it widens the angle. The chance of actually getting a lift off is much smaller. But they're almost all, you'll notice, because it's like regular, wide cut, oblique cut. They're almost all of them are that way and so way. So it's like, you can imagine cutting it round. That's my take on it, but there's many more. I'd also like to know what the dye is, because it's a naturally produced, it's a British Guiana dye, which is the front of the stamp. And it's got a lot to do with the fact that it's so true in a lot of ways. I mean, the front it's obviously been baked, essentially. But the paper, you look at it really carefully, you can see the ribbing lines on it. Both horizontally and vertically, and it's still crisp. There's nothing wrong with it. It's absolutely.
Well, I don't think the photography has ever done it justice. I think this time around is the best it's ever been.
That's not a bad.
No, and even the pictures of the 3 items together, those were brilliant looking.
And this dates from DuPont. You can see the tiny little bit of a hinge. When we sent the first photographs out, this hinge was that much bigger.
Yeah. Really?
I pulled it off. which improved the look of it a little bit. Okay. Good night, people.
Look at that.
No.
I quite like the block.
We debated amongst ourselves if we had the money, which we would prefer.
And?
Didn't you say the block?
I'd say the block.
And I said.
Go for the big one.
Yeah. So there would be no fighting between us.
Yeah.
But
He said last.
greatest item of all time, what is it?
Philatelically? Are you going to say the Bordeaux cover?
Of course. It's the only thing I want to sell now.
Really?
Yeah, I'd love to have a go at that. I just like to write the catalogue. It's the same argument that David has about coins. As stamp collecting is about this, and you interact with them. It's very difficult to just start putting things behind.
This is just unreal.
And you've seen the funky. Did you? The funky thing about the block?
What's that?
What is this? It's just magnetic.
Oh. Much different.
So it's the same thing. And I will tell you that even though I've written the catalogue, I've done this, and you've seen me play with the Jenny because I love the Jenny, which has got the British Guiana, because I've got familiarity breeds contempt, this being the second time around. This is as close as I've got to it.
Really?
I won't take it anywhere near the plastic.
Yeah.
Is it square?
I'm going to let you do that. Too much pressure.
I mean, he was the buyer of this ultimately, right?
Not entirely. Yeah.
So
Did you see the pencil marks on the back?
the wonderful Eugene Klein's pencil marks, very, very neat.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Pre-printing funny creases that exist on all of them that you never really see them on the back.
Yeah, it doesn't show through to the front at all.
No.
No, and I gave up with hinged mid. The never hinged. I think that's caused more problems than it's done good over the years. I mean, they look fabulous from the front.
Yeah.
That would just about do it. Okay, line the little bugger up. The thing is, the mount's not really straight, is it? Maybe. Good enough.
I think that's good enough, yeah. It looks good.
The secret is now
Getting that.
without the static.
Perfect.
Ooh, look, I'm getting better. There you go.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Good luck Monday or
Did you
Tuesday.
have your catalogs?
We haven't.
You will be getting more, but there's one of each.
Wow, fantastic.
Thank you, Ella. That was lovely.
Thank you.
Stuart couldn't sign this one.
No, well, there's a coin. This was designed by Augustus St. Gaudens, and he died before it was finished. And there was this super high relief version that was made as the pattern, and he had died. And Roosevelt loved the high relief, but it didn't make any sense.
Stack.
It didn't stack, and they couldn't use it. But Roosevelt liked so many that they had about 10 or 20 made, and they were given to dignitaries, or not really given, but you could buy them. And Augustus St. Gaudens' widow said, I don't have one. And this was a year after he died. So she got in touch with Teddy, and Teddy immediately said, well, she's got to have one. And the order went to the Secretary of the Treasury, and which I loved. He said, give her one of ours from the federal collection or make another one.
Wow.
So they gave her one of the ones that the government held. She paid $20 for it, plus 12 cents for shipping and handling. And what she did was that she put her initials, she etched her initials on the rim.
Wow.
On the edge.
See, we can't have anything original.
But the problem is normally that would be considered defacing a coin. We don't have, the British Guiana is amazing.
Used to be treason in Britain.
Exactly. And so you couldn't do that. Because it was St. Gaudens' wife, the grading services looked the other way. And it was recently sold for $2.5 million.
He's my favorite sculptor of all time. I have a statue of the Diana of the Tower in my house that I have the Met reproduced a little one that I keep with me. He's the greatest of all time.
Yeah, and there's some great books on it. And when I was researching,
he lived right. Michael's from New Hampshire.
Yeah.
So we're dying to go to his place.
Oh, you should.
I'm waiting until my girlfriend can go.
Actually, I think they used to run they used to run a little video introduction to because they did PBS did a documentary. I am showing my age. It must have been at least 10 years ago. Maybe more.
Which means it's probably 20.
Which means it's probably 20. And I was interviewed for it, and then they took the outtakes of mine and they ran a loop on the development of the coin design. But they still run, I think, up there. But they have all the original plasters for the design, so you could see how his thought process changed as he was going through it. And first she had wings, then she didn't have wings. And, he didn't want to clutter the design with unnecessary information. So he left In God We Trust off the back. Well, when the coin first came out, this created a firestorm there in Congress.
Because apparently
Teddy Roosevelt thought it was blasphemous to carry God's name in your pocket. He went to battle. He lost. And so in 1907 or 08, they don't say In God We Trust on the reverse. But from 1908 on, they do. The story of the 33 itself is just, it's, as Cole Porter would say, 222 Divine.
Yes.
It is just, it's got everything. It's got crooks, it's got criminals.
There your taste, like Cole Porter too.
Yeah.
It's all the right time here.
Very much so.
But it's got, you got crooks, you got the Secret Service, you got Roosevelt, you got Sting at the Waldorf Astoria, where Cole Porter lived. Court case that went to the Supreme Court over it. It's got a little bit of everything. No sex.
You can
no
tell
sex.
he likes coins.
Hey, how can you not like this one?
Yeah.
Well, I've got to. I've kind of lived with it for 20 years. So Stuart got to pay for it, and I got to.
Although we have to remember that David is only 45 years old, so
That is
20
true.
years living with the coin actually has its.
Yeah, it's absolutely. It's kind of.
Both these things have tried to kill us, haven't they?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, very
Quite
much.
literally.
Very much. Yeah, there was a court case in Philadelphia over another batch of these. It turned out that the government said they were stolen and they were.
I hate to say it. I told them your expert.
Oh, you did? Oh, okay. Yeah.
I told them the judge's comment.
Which was.
The greatest expert witness testimony he had ever.
He also said it was what he really said was the longest he's ever had.
And wonderfully self-effacing too. David, we've got to get on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Wonderful seeing you.
Pleasure meeting
so
you.
much. And you know what? Buy the stamp, and
Yeah.
then you can hire Bob in 20 years to recatalog, or do it yourself. Even better.
Excellent.
Really.
Wow.
I don't know.
cannot thank you enough for this opportunity.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
You as well. I would
Thank
love
you
to
so much.
touch base after the sale.
No,
Yes.
absolutely. No, do that. I'll send you all my details. You've got my email anyway.
After the sale is over, once it's sold, once the dust is settled,
Yeah.
could we interview you via Zoom about what happens?
I'd like to. Well, by then we can probably just.
Or
do it face to face.
if we did something again after it's all done, we'd love to do that with you.
Absolutely. I'm sorry we didn't get it done before. But
Again, I think afterwards would even be better. We've got this to go again. If you wouldn't mind taking a couple of minutes, that would be much appreciated.
be more than happy. I would be more than happy. Lovely.
Thank you so much.
Michael, normally, I don't even know what to say. Normally in our outro, we just sort of wrap things up. But after spending an hour in the presence of the ones at Magenta, not behind glass, not even behind a mount, like
Yeah, that was incredible.
it's one of those things I truly cannot really wrap my head around, and I can't put into words what an experience like that means to me. My philatelic journey started really the last time it was sold in 2014.
Yeah.
That was sort of like the big news going on when I entered the hobby, and the stamp has always meant a lot to me because it was, it gave me something to talk about with people when I started collecting. So, something that has, you've always followed it. You read the books about it, you read the articles about it, and then to see the auction catalog, and just know that it's going to be coming up. I think there's instructions in the back on how to bid in case you want to get your bid ready for tomorrow morning. But again, the plate block is obviously phenomenal. The Walking Liberty Double Eagle 1933, obviously phenomenal. But man, the Magenta,
And what stories by by Mr. Scott himself, and
Oh.
you can tell the passion, and he's put in an incredible amount of work into building these catalogs.
When I spoke to him the first time, he was about to write these catalogs, and he said, if they don't kill me, I'll call you back.
Yeah.
And I'm really glad, but you can
Yeah.
see the amount of labor and love that went into assembling these things.
This catalog
It's for one stamp.
is for one stamp.
And this is never going to leave our bookshelves in the office.
This is incredible.
These are catalogs we keep forever. So to be in the presence of greatness like that, I don't know. It's like watching Eric Clapton play guitar, or like watching Willie Mays play baseball or something. Being in the presence of the greatest stamp, the most famous stamp. Again, any superlative you want to use, that stamp fits the bill. And to have gotten to spend some time with it, and to have been able to take people along with us, through this whole process of going to Sotheby's and again, just laying eyes on it so close.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed it. This is a day I will never forget as long as I live.
Absolutely.
And I just want to extend a huge thank you to everybody, again, watching or listening to this. Thank you for joining us. We always appreciate the support. Again, I don't even know what to say in conclusion, but just a huge thank you to Sotheby's, to Bob Scott, to Ella Hall, who joined us from Sotheby's. This was an unforgettable one, and we hope you enjoyed it, and we hope you'll join us again real soon.
Absolutely. Thank you.